Hello, everyone. Jeanette Foster here. Today, I want to come on and talk about ego and fear together and how it coincides with each other. So, let's talk about the big fear that comes up for every twin flame at one point or another. And that fear is that fear that we will never get to union with our twin flame. So let's first, before we go into the fear itself, let's talk about the ego. So what is the ego? So the ego is essentially our identity and who we are as in our persona, in our personality. So the ego is really this idea of who we think we are and mentally in our thoughts there. So some people say that the ego is just false. Well, I don't teach that and I don't believe that. It's not, to me, it's not entirely false. So yes, there are parts to it that are false, and then there are also parts to it that are not false. So it's extremely intricate and complicated to think about. So the ego, it is in charge of our protection and really keeping us protected. So there are sometimes when we are in pain, so the ego will step in and say, I don't want to feel this pain. So it will actually turn the other way and run if that's the case. Or it's like that full reaction that happens when we get pulled into emotions. That is part of the ego in itself. So the ego, in a way, is good because the ego is responsible for us being protected when we need the protection. It is responsible for kicking in when we're in a dire situation and there's immediate danger to us. It will kick in and trigger our fight or flight system, and then that keeps us protected. So it sends that adrenaline to our system, and then we know that, okay, this is dangerous, and so we run away from it. So ego essentially is our defense mechanism for protecting us. So the ego may even get defensive in the moment where we feel like someone hurt us. So it pulls us into the reaction of our emotions. So the ego is very much connected to our emotional responses within our body. So you can actually use the ego as a tool for growth, and it can also be used as a way to glimpse into your subconscious mind and the things that you've suppressed into your subconscious, and you will be able to see that aspect of your mind in that way by using the ego and looking at the reactions that arise in your emotions. So what happens here when we have a fear, like a fear that we'll never get to union with our twin flame? So what happens here, and this has happened to me in the past. So in the past, I had this fear. I had this fear that I was never going to get to union with my twin flame. Well, I had these thoughts that came up that what if I don't like my twin flame? What if like I end up getting hurt? Like, what if, you know, it was all these thoughts that were very fear-based, and that those thoughts caused that fear of meeting my twin flame in person, because it was a long distance relationship for me. So in my own case, it was that all these thoughts that came up around the fear, it was causing me to think that, oh, I might be hurt by him. So then what happens here is, in that moment where I had that fear, those fearful thoughts coming up, the ego stepped in here and said, okay, no, this is not okay. Meeting your twin might mean that you're going to get hurt. So the ego would step in subconsciously, because it's connected to our emotional states in our subconscious mind as well. It would then create situations where I would subconsciously push him away sometimes, but I was completely unaware of it. And so I felt closed off emotionally because of the anxiety of the idea that was surrounding the idea of meeting him. So that's how it happened for me, and largely this is probably the case for you. It may be slightly different if you're not in a situation where your twin flame is a long distance situation. So the consequences of that fear coming up may be slightly different, but essentially is the same thing. The fear will kick in, and then your ego will take over and create these situations where you feel the need to subconsciously push them away. So you're probably asking, well, how do I work through this? How can I use my ego as a tool to look into my subconscious mind? Well, that's what I do. That's what I teach people to do. My clients, I help them to learn how to use that as a tool for their growth. So right now, I want to invite you, if you are feeling this fear of never getting to union with your twin flame, and that causes these thoughts of, you know, what if this, what if that, what if they hurt me? And then that creates more anxiety for you, that then ends up creating these moments where you're subconsciously pushing your twin flame away. Then I invite you to reach out to me, and I can get you the same results that I get for my clients. So, all right, and that's pretty much all I wanted to come on and talk about. And you guys have a great night. Bye.